jar of edibles here. So
Oh, I like that.
yes. So we're live. We're doing this. This is my very first live. So welcome everybody to my very first live. I am Margaret, the host of Bite Me, the show about edibles, Bite Me podcast. And I am joined today by three esteemed growers because I had questions about growing because things weren't starting out so hot for me this year as far as growing outdoors. And I thought if I have questions, I know other people are going to have questions because I've never been so excited for spring. It was a very long, cold winter. So today I am joined by Monkey, Emily, and Steve. And Monkey, you may know as a panel member of the High on Homegrown show. We were panel members together for quite some time. And he's also an active member of the Bite Me Cannabis Club, helping people out with their grows. And we have Emily with Anything Grows, and Steve, breedersteve.com. So these are your expert growers. I am going to be hopefully fielding some questions. I do have questions collected already, and I think Emily said you have some too. So, yeah, people ask away.
Well, thank you so much for hosting this. This is actually my first Ask Me Anything. I haven't done one of those before. So this will be interesting. I'm really excited for some of the questions that we've gotten because I know you shared some of those. And then I keep a running list of questions that I have because I feel like even though you might call us or call me expert grower, I refute that. I wouldn't say I'm expert, but I do like to learn and I like to share, especially what I'm learning, even if it goes well or especially if it doesn't, save somebody a few extra steps. So I don't think that there is such a thing as like a dumb question. I think that just ask it. Even if it's a rough way to ask it, get it out there because we can clean it up and figure out what you really mean.
Right. Well, and I also appreciate the fact that you grow outdoors as well. And being in Michigan, it's like a little bit, of a cooler climate. It's probably a lot more like mine a lot of the time. So growing outdoors has different challenges, I guess. And of course, you have experience growing indoors as well. And Monkey in the deep south, that has its own host of issues when it comes to growing. And Steve, of course, you've, I think, grown pretty much everywhere. So between the three of you, I don't think there's a single question we can't answer. So yeah, so we do have a question from Deborah in the chat. And what's your favorite thing about cannabis? Which isn't, that's a great way to start things off.
Great place to start.
Jeez, yeah, that's a complicated question at that. It's like I don't know if I enjoy growing it, caring for it, learning about it, or smoking it the most. I really can't tell you. I just like the whole plant. It makes me happy.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Either of you have comments?
I see Steve nodding over there. I think he likes.
Yeah, I just agree. I agree. Yeah, it's there's lots of ways to enjoy it, from the time you're popping the seed to the time you're deciding how long it should cure in the jar. It's a joy every step of the way. If it's your passion for it, if you've got a hobby to do it, or you're doing it out of medical necessity, it's not. You can make it as complicated as you want to, but you can also do it pretty simply and still have great results, Mm-hmm. So I'm sure there'll be always people that'll argue that and say, oh no, you can only do it if this, you know what, do it however you can do it and make whatever you can out of it and call it a win and move forward. You'll always gain experience every time. And for me, at this stage in my life, I haven't been growing competitively for a while. So I haven't, and especially for my homegrown, I have been thinking, just gamifying it, like how nice of resin can I harvest without spending a cent, And so even if the bud's not all the way finished, if it's 80-90% of the way done, resin's probably pretty nice still if you're good at separating it, and you're going to end up with some absolute melty glands. And if you want to press that into rosin, or I'll save a few buds from every plant, fill up a few jars, and then I'll turn the rest of it, like 90-95% of every plant, just into really fresh frozen dry sift. And I absolutely love that. I don't even turn it into rosin that often because I think changes, as rosin sooner. If I wanted to squish some, I would just squish a bit, but I like to preserve it as ripe, glands that are just clean and dry and in the fridge more than the freezer even, although I do keep them in the freezer too. And just being able to take it out as you want, if you keep it pretty sealed up and in jars, it can be beautiful for years. And it
Right.
doesn't take up much space. Whereas I don't want to smoke a bale of hippie hay all the time,
Oh,
but
I've done that lots of times.
I like to, my lungs just won't take it anymore, so
Yeah.
I like to have it down to one puff that matters, and you like one quick rip and you're
Make it
sailing for a
count.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll still roll up some bats if I'm going out for a walk or going to a party or something. I'm happy to roll up a pocket full of joints and go play Santa Claus at a party with them, and that's
Yeah.
always fun, But on a day-to-day basis, I don't smoke as much grass as I do hash or extract, which is a perfectly good use of nearly ripe grass. And if you're as far north as I am, and you can do absolute dynamite if you do light depths, that can look perfect. But if you go full season and leave it till Halloween, the lights become weaker and weaker through the fall and the weather's cooled down. So they start to maybe get a little leafier towards the end and that. So I've left some outside because I have a covered back porch. So when the sun's low in the sky, the sun's still coming in. I call it cheater outdoor because it never gets rained on. So it doesn't get wet. You don't have any problems. But once the snow starts, it'll blow sideways and swirl around, and then it'll get caked in snow. But I've left it
Snow.
out there till Valentine's just for fun and games,
Wow. I
to
think your
make
climate's a little warmer
a
than
late
mine, though.
harvest. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we've had some really, this was a crazy warm winter for us. We really
Yeah.
didn't have any deep cold, and we maybe had 1 or 2 inches of snow once.
Right.
Like it was nothing. It
Yeah.
was gone in a day. So
Yeah.
we almost didn't have a winter this year, really.
Oh,
Like
well,
it
I
was just
I
kind
can't
of a
say the
very
same.
long, late fall.
It was a very
Yeah.
cold winter this year, but I just wanted to actually mention that Deborah had another question, and then there's another question in the chat that we'll
Sorry.
get to as well. But Deborah is a member of the Bite Me Cannabis Club, and she grew a plant successfully for the very first time very recently, and she was justifiably very proud of that plant. It was beautiful, and she asked the question of, and maybe you can answer this a bit, Monkey. Why is the top of my plant pinkish, purplish, and the rest of it is very green?
Well, I did see her plant, so I know exactly what she's asking. As the plant became older and got closer to harvest, she started getting anthocyanins at the top, and you started getting the purples, the pinks, the pretty colors in the top leaves. The reason she didn't get much of the color in the bottom leaves is because they weren't exposed to as much light as the top leaves were. So the top
Okay.
leaves are reacting to the light and the intense light, and she was only growing that plant under a 75-watt light. So I mean, it
Right.
was a test grow.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a whole lot of light left toward the bottom. So that's why the top of the plant showed massive color and the bottom of the plant showed some color, but not a lot of color. I see
So
this
that
quite often on a dense plant. You can kind of move the top leaves away and you will find some green deep down in toward the heart of the plant sometimes. Depends
Right.
upon temperatures and light exposure and things like that. But I was involved with her trying to get that plant to harvest, and I'm glad we did. It was an experience for her to try and learn the process and see exactly what it's all about. And she did extremely well on that plant. I was very proud of her watching that happen there. So and guiding her through it. But yeah, she was kind of afraid when she dropped me a picture one day saying, "I need help. What's wrong with this?" And I looked at it and it's like, your plant's finishing up. That's all it is. You're starting to get some color on the top leaves. It's
It's
just
kind of
like what happens in the fall to most
right,
cannabis plants.
like the plant senescence when it's starting to die a little bit.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that'll
Okay.
happen more evenly outdoors because, the
Right.
sun is a brighter light. She was just functioning with a very small light. So hopefully on the
Right.
next grow, we'll get her a stronger light and see if she can do a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty awesome to see her through that whole process because, yeah, it's like a first time grower. It's always really exciting. And you are sort of, taking matters into your own hand, this little radical self reliance, which I love. which is what you get when you grow your own weed because you can do so much with it afterwards.
True.
Her,
And she fell in love with the process. That's the magic about growing your own is once you start, once this thing is yours and you're taking care of it, it's a different story altogether. It's like it's sometimes on your first one, it's actually hard to cut it down because you
Yeah.
appreciate it so much.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Emily?
I was going to say, like, her post after she said she harvested her first homegrown plant, you could read all of the excitement and the
Yeah.
energy and just the joy that she had and the pride and everything. So I think that's probably one of the coolest parts, especially when somebody does get to have that success and feel that. And then it just lights that fire of, well, what else can I do? What else can I grow?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Now we have a question in the chat from Michael, and his question is, if I understand it correctly, why doesn't anyone talk about music and cannabis as LST?
That one kind of goes right over my head. I've never considered music to train cannabis plants.
You talk about low stress training?
I'm assuming. Sorry, Emily, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was sounding it out as well. Low stress training.
Yeah. I mean, we're all drawing blanks on that. I'm even seeing Steve's face like, I don't know what you're talking about, music and training here.
Well,
I mean,
I've heard the theory, and I've never attempted to validate the theory. Let's say I just listen to whatever I feel like, and I don't worry too much. Like there was a book like in the 70s or something that said if they listened to Mozart or Black Sabbath or something, it was different growth, and that was all just bullshit. But
I feel like if you're looking at it though in terms of, because there is actual science behind if you talk to your plants.
Yeah, and vibrations and all that. Like there's a lot that they respond to. Like I guarantee you, like your love of the plant shows up to the plant. They're sentient beings to lots of degrees, I'm sure. And if you're really good to them, they're really good to you. But as far as does it play in a certain frequency, make it more potent? I couldn't tell you. I mean, I've never tried, to
Have you experimented, Emily, with any of the music?
No, I think it's interesting. But yeah, I just kind of listen to whatever I want to listen to. I just feel like personally, if I mean, from my own standpoint, if I'm gonna wake up in the morning and put on some sad music, then I'm probably gonna have a sad day all day. It kind of influences that. So I'm imagining somebody just putting on some like screamo hardcore music that's like pretty berating and telling your plant don't grow, and using that as low stress training. I don't know.
Gregorian chants or nothing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that does make sense. Although I do have a friend that's really into like the heavy metal music. I don't know if he listens to it while he's.
Maybe your plant reflects that vibe. I don't know, but I think it reflects your vibe sometimes because I've smoked some people's that I thought the dude was really, really freaky. And as soon as you heard this weed, you sort of got that, holy fuck, I'm freaking out now. Maybe that's why. I don't know if the guy's weed's like that or if he's like that because of the weed, or vice versa, is the weed like that because of him or is he like that because of the weed? Because it was like a weird feeling when you smoked that particular dude's weed. That's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. There's no people are gonna, that's not science. I know it's not science, but there's some vibes there that you don't know. I'm not, really hardcore about it, but I do think there's more to it than we know,
I think that's kind of funny how you said that. It's kind of like the stoners version of, is it the chicken or the egg came first? Is it the weed or is it the guy? I don't know.
The chicken or the egg seems really straightforward to me. And it had to be the egg because there had to be a first chicken. Something crossed with something and became a chicken. So there was an egg before there was a chicken. I'm
having to think about that.
Yeah.
Something had to create the chicken because if it wasn't the first chicken, it was probably two related things,
I mean, aren't chickens, they came from dinosaurs?
For sure.
Do think.
For sure.
Yeah.
But which dinosaurs? They had grandparents, you know what I mean? Which dinosaurs started, if their parents weren't chickens, but they begat a chicken, there was an egg before there was a chicken.
I follow that. I
I
absolutely
think I
do.
do too. I think I do too.
And this
So
is
if
It's not
probably most
crazy.
I put into figuring out that answer.
Right.
So if it
Right.
was a creature that created that animal that laid the egg, that wasn't a chicken yet because it had to become a chicken to lay an egg, and now we have a chicken.
Well, no, it was a different bird, perhaps, that got hit up with a different bird.
And then
Two
Okay.
the
different
production
birds.
was
So
the
yeah, the
chicken.
two
Yeah.
different birds came together and made a chicken.
Right.
Okay.
You know,
Okay. That does
some
check out.
unholy union.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who
Stoner
knows?
conversations.
Who knows? It's
Do
fun to
any of
think
you
about
talk to
these
your
things.
plants? Like, do you
But no,
talk to your plants when you're in your?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They get chewed out sometimes.
Do they?
I don't
Oh,
think I do out loud, but I think I do in my head.
right.
You know?
Yeah. What about you, Monkey? Do you talk to your plants?
Occasionally, especially if I start seeing something that doesn't look right, I start asking it questions, and it's just I'm thinking out loud is all I'm doing really.
Right.
I don't know if the plants actually react to it. They never answer me. That's the problem.
Yeah, when the wind blows a branch down, you're like, "Oh, poor baby," go tie it up,
Yeah.
Put a cast on it.
or amputate it, as the case may be.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I got to amputate your lower leg, but here you go. Sorry.
So I don't know if we answered Michael's question or not about music and cannabis and low stress training, because I'm not really sure if he was talking about that as a tool for low stress training the plant or as a low stress training for ourselves.
Or was he just comparing it to something else that people talk about? Because he said people don't talk about cannabis and music like they do LST. So maybe he
No,
thinks
it
there's
says
too much focus on LST and not enough on the music.
Right. It'd be interesting, an inexpensive experiment to try anyway. See if music improves a grow.
Well, it depends how many types of music you want to check,
I guess
And
that's
is it
true.
really kind to them to? That's how they tortured like Noriega, right? To get him out of the embassy, they just like cranked up some hair metal song over and over again,
Well, I don't know if
and
I
they
would
just
start with
played it
metal.
24 hours to drive him nuts until he left
Yeah.
the embassy. So
Yeah.
I think maybe you got to give him a pretty long playlist so it's not too repetitive.
Yes, and something nice
You
and
don't want to bore
soothing
them.
and relaxing and
Yeah, anything, too much of anything is too much.
yeah. Yeah, that would maybe I should try that experiment now that I've said that. But Camp Laughing Grass says that chickens are totally tiny dinosaurs. And I agree because I get a lot of turkeys around my place sometimes, and they also look prehistoric. I think all birds like that look really prehistoric. So
Cool. I had some say dinosaur pot pie for dinner then. No problem.
yeah. Yeah, that sounds more exotic, dinosaur pot pie.
It does really sound better.
Yeah. Now, Emily, you said you had a couple of questions as well. Did you want to share one of those right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of like when I started using cannabis and everything is because it was more like a mental health aspect, even more so. Like I know some people will find cannabis just like pain management, things like that. But when I first was exploring, cannabis as medicine, it was for mental health matters, and so. I've kind of just got a few questions here in terms of, reaching out and seeing just how you guys use cannabis on a day-to-day basis. Is it something that you use as needed? Is it something that you've scheduled and you dose out as medicine? And kind of how that relationship has grown with it. I think that would be awesome to explore.
Yeah. Well, I can start if you like, just because I'm running this show. So, but I mean, my use has probably changed a little bit over the last little while, but obviously edibles play a pretty big part of my life. I eat them almost every single day. I do tend to do like really low dose ones throughout the day and then do something, a higher dose in the evening to relax. I also use topicals. And probably could not survive without them. I use them for everything. Like it's just I'm slathering topicals on myself, usually 2 or 3 times a day at least for my low back, because I'm at that age now where I too have low back pain. So how cliche is that? But the topicals help a ton. And it's also a great way to introduce cannabis to people because it's so and people usually don't think twice about like putting on some kind of lotion or balm that you've made or picked up from the store or whatever.
Now,
And then
do those have THC in them, or is it just CBD, CBG? Like, do you focus on the terpene profile or the cannabinoid profile?
not usually. But it's always has THC in them.
Okay.
because all my infusions are usually half and half. But if I'm doing topicals, there's always THC and CBD in them. Yeah. Yeah. And I
What
don't
about
actually
the
smoke that.
edibles that you consume? Is it typically just THC, or do you go for
I do
the
both. I do both. Yeah. Like CBD is probably more during the day because I find that if I get high during the day, then I am not getting anything done. That's usually what ends up happening. And and I don't smoke that much anymore either, just because I don't know, an ex-cigarette smokers and asthmatic and add all the shit up together, and I just don't smoke that much anymore. I use a dry herb vaporizer, but
yeah.
and I do like to consume hash as well from time to time. So yeah, I'm always looking for better ways to consume that because I used to do a lot of bottle tokes and I can't do those anymore. So
It's so
I know,
harsh.
right? I know. But I also don't smoke. So like I don't have the required equipment for that kind of thing. But yeah. But I did a tolerance break in January, and that definitely like kind of reverted my tolerance downward. It downshifted it for sure, which was really nice because I feel like minimum effective dose is kind of what I'm going for. How little can I use to get the desired effects? And so that was a really useful experiment. I hadn't done a month-long tolerance break in, I don't know, a very long time. So yeah.
I am very impressed with that. I do not partake in tolerance breaks. If I have to, I suppose, work on tolerance in an aspect, I will just focus more on consuming in a different way instead of not consuming. So, typically, I use cannabis to assist with my mental health. I do struggle, unfortunately, with a few pretty debilitating conditions. I have schizoaffective bipolar as the largest one, which means that I have schizophrenia and I have bipolar disorder. And those really kind of battle and struggle with each other. And a lot of my life has been hidden behind heavy pharma, big pharmaceuticals, antipsychotics, things like that, SSRIs. And it's really left me kind of on the numb end of things, and so I don't like to take medicine whatsoever anymore. And so I ended up switching to cannabis so that I could get off of those big pharmaceuticals and things like that. And now, it's turned into more so I use cannabis as my go-to for anything that I'm having an ailment or an issue with. So not only is it my mental health stabilizer, but it also is now my, because I do have chronic pain. I've been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis recently, and that's a huge change. It's great to have answers, but at the same time, now we got to figure out how to keep managing and make it through every day. So cannabis has been able to help out with that. And so I use it to help with my physical pain and my chronic pain that comes with that. So I've had to learn kind of how to dose my medicine out and use it effectively so that I'm not, completely just toked off, passing out on the couch, trying to get things done and unable to focus. So it's really been kind of like learning how to, choose what I need and when I need it, if you will. So I'll take RSO or FICO, full extract cannabis oil, and I use that as a baseline, just depending on how much dosage you use and how often. So I've had to learn how to do everything from measuring them out and taking them in 3-hour increments, so that I could get through a regular work day and be able to manage and take it just like I would Tylenol or ibuprofen or something like that. When you consume flour, it's kind of more flour, I would feel like, is more of like a full body effect, if you will. It takes a few minutes longer to get there, but it's going to help a bit fuller than, say, a dab does. But I'll use dabs for kind of that chronic acute pain that I get immediately, and I need help. Or unfortunately, I've got some stomach issues, so I deal with a lot of nausea and cramping, things like that. You can use cannabis for that. And so it's really interesting to learn how you have to see the different ways to consume and see how they can apply. And so I think that's probably the strongest part that anybody can start with when using cannabis, is figuring out what you're needing it for, because that's going to help you figure out when to use it as well.
Do you use topicals as well too? Like, I'm just curious because
Yeah,
you're asking about the THC and the CBD in yours.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
I'm very thankful. My friend that I do the Let's Be Buds podcast with, Dave, he actually helps and makes his own lotion, and he has THC lotion, CBD lotion, and CBG lotion. I haven't quite learned how to make my own yet at this point, but that is on my list of things to do because I think that, I mean, especially coming from the background that I have, learning how to take care of myself completely inside and out is one of the strongest things that I could possibly do for myself. It's one of the best ways that I can take care of myself is learning the different capacities and how to use them and what it
Right.
mattered to me in those ways.
Yeah. And interestingly, I made an infusion a little after last year's outdoor grow. I made an infusion with the root ball of one of the plants that I had because
Yeah.
apparently it's really high in CBG and I use that in topicals a lot.
Mhm.
And I was partly inspired by Monkey because he had tried it too. And I had someone on my show a long time ago who made soap using the root ball of the cannabis plant, which just goes to show you can literally use the entire plant from, root to top cola or whatever. So
I
I
have
just thought
a
that was
root
kind of cool.
ball right now in my basement that I've been saving since I did a DWC grow, and I was going to do tea with it. I was going to steep it into tea.
Right. Yeah. The topical is something worth exploring, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If used
Yeah.
right, those topicals with the root ball topicals, I would say, or at least for me, they were magical. I was having knee problems and a lot of swelling and pain in the knees. And on a whim, I was researching how to use various parts of the plant, and I ran across a very old article that said something about using the root ball and making a poultice out of the boiled root ball and applying it to the joint for relief. This was like back in 1900. So that gave me an idea of maybe trying to make an infusion with a root ball, and I did that with coconut oil. And magically, my therapist couldn't believe it. One day I would leave his office, and the next day I came back. He says, "What did you do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to fess up to you. I put this special," he calls it the witch's brew, on my knee. And I mean, I've had people watch me do it, and like in 30 minutes, the swelling is like 25% less. And I'm not saying it works for everybody, but it worked for me. So that was one way that I learned how to use all the plant. And this one is like, you don't get high on it, you just get relief. It's the kind of thing that, hey, if my knees are hurting a little bit, I'll put a little on before I go to bed, and in the morning, everything's fine. That kind of stuff like that. So yeah, the root ball
I think
stuff.
I'm definitely going to look into that.
Now,
I've got
I
all of that
want
on
to
hand
say,
right now.
I'll warn you, I've tried it on my hands. It doesn't work the same. It only works where it works.
Okay.
So yeah, by all means, though, try it and see what you can get out of it.
That's what I'm very interested in, though. I mean, being able to use a plant and have access to all of these different therapeutical benefits in a lot of different ways, though. It's not just the consumption application. It's not just the physical topical. I mean, earlier even you said, Steve, it's everything from cultivating it, from growing it, to learning about the plant. And I think that's so true. I mean, the plant knows what you need and when you need it.
Yeah, and I mean, I also was on that tolerance break with Margaret during January. We did it together. Excuse me, clear my throat there.
Mhm.
But anyway, while I was on the tolerance break, I still had a grow going on. So, and it's kind of interesting, watching it grow and not being able to touch it, but it wasn't that hard really. But I also had some lollipopping and trim to do. And a friend of ours, Margaret and ours, had mentioned something about compounds in the cannabis leaves. So that made me think a little bit. So instead of just going ahead and composting these leaves like I usually do, I made tea out of it. And it tastes a little bit like green tea. And if you add mint to it, it didn't taste bad. But what I found out was when I wasn't smoking or taking any THC or buds of any kind like that, if I drank the tea, you didn't get high, but it gave me a nice feeling of well-being and comfort and energy. So there's something in those leaves that's not bad for you. And to this day, anytime I lollipop, I'll save the leaves and I make tea out of it. Why not?
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people will juice them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah. And I recall actually you telling me, Steve, like a long time ago that you could do like a fan leaf infusion. You remember that? I don't know if you've made it recently, but
I haven't actually. I've been meaning to make an infusion, but this is a way to, and it was a little book on edibles a long time ago by D. Gold called, I think, Cannabis Edibles. But D. Gold, it was a little tiny paperback, very inexpensive. And I never forgot some of the recipes I'd read in there because I probably read it back to front 50 times. But one of them I tried, the first time I tried it was with a male because he said, you can even use your males for this and it works. And I'm like, it was the middle of July in the 90s, very early 90s, I think. And the middle of the summer, and the town was pretty dry. Sometimes in like July, or it could be hard to find any kind of cannabis in the city, you know? They'd be like, oh shit, the town's pretty dry, you know? And so I was growing some plants and they were from seed and there was some male and I was like, okay, shit. Well, they're like Northern Lights males or something. And they were even pretty sticky, you know, like their sisters were very potent. Let's put it that way. But I took the males down, took them to a friend's place and dried them in his oven. And then you broke it into thirds and simmered it in cooking oil. We probably got like 5 gallons of cooking oil or something. And you simmer the first like stock pot of them with a third of the green in it, and then strain it out, press it out best you can. And it goes from gold to light green, you know, bright green. You put the second third in, cook it. Now it's dark green after you've strained it. Then you cook the third one in it. And by then it's totally black. And you've got so many, like we filled up a shelf in his fridge of mason jars of this stuff. And you just put that quarter cup in the pan of brownies. Absolutely annihilated us. It was ridiculous how strong it was. And it was just so funny because we weren't expecting too much from the males, but we thought, you know what, who knows, worth a try. The town's dry. We could make it, you know, 1,000 trays of brownies if it works, you know.
Right.
And it worked, you know, like shit, it was so good. So I mean, it's one of those something from nothing scenarios where if you're really trying to get everything from it, and I've just been composting my leaves for so long, I just haven't done anything with them. I just take them straight to the composter. But but after I do the dry sift, there's still really nice crumbled up bud there with lots of resin left in it. So I wouldn't even need to infuse it 3 times like I would a leaf batch, you know?
Right.
I would infuse that 1 time is probably plenty, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Just let that simmer for half an hour, a half pound of frosty little budlets and shake, you know, all the sugar leaves. Because you're just taking the cream of the dry sift off it when it's like -8, -10 Celsius out. You know, I find -14. What's that?
Can we talk about dry sift? Because I'm really interested in learning about that. I actually have a 4-pack of Bubbleman dry sift screens, and I haven't used them yet. I don't know what to do.
Well, if it's still cold in Michigan, I bet you it's warming up there. But if it's still cold, I would say do it outside when it's super cold.
Okay.
Because it really handles better frozen hard because the resin isn't sticky then. So it doesn't clump together. And that's your biggest worry is if it clumps, it won't go through screens, you know? It's got to flow through like sand through an hourglass. So if you can do it in deep cold conditions, that's the only way it's even worth doing dry sift, in my opinion. Like you've got to be really, really cold, and then it sifts like so easy. And even if you do have all the, your flour to break up, it breaks up real, just like pops. I put on PVC gloves.
Okay.
And I'll take like a half-pound bag of flour and sort of break it up in there, or slap the bag down really hard on the tabletop outside a few times, just to shock the glands off it.
Now, that cold, bag though, bag, did you have it in the freezer prior to getting cold?
No, because I was doing it mostly on the nights if it would go down to about -14 Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's cold enough. Whatever -14 Celsius is, I found to be about the ideal temperature. I've done it colder with dry ice, and I've used liquid nitrogen and tried to do it like that. And maybe if you were injecting liquid nitrogen into a controlled spinning chamber or something, like I think there's a company that does make one with a CO2 injector, and that's perfect if you're somewhere it's not cold, because it's got to be really cold and dry to go through the screens clean. And then don't just scrape it from the last levels, because there'll be dust on the table. I'm not sure what the 4 screens are in the set you've got, but I typically would take a 25 or a 45. You can even put both if you want. Once you've separated it, but still cold, you can put them in rosin bags. You could put all that dust into rosin bags and suck the fines out of it. Because you know how like water would pull the stuff through the last screens, and it has like that G-force bringing down all the stuff that's smaller than the screens, you know, all the really, you don't just want to scrape it off the bottom, because then all that stuff would be in there like in a trim bin. But with the trim bin or other plastic stuff, this is the other way to clean it besides the vacuum, is you can use plastic bowls or pails, or even better, silicone ones. And certain silicones can be charged even differently. So you can, I've been experimenting with the silicone because I think there's a beautiful system to be made that's totally passive. So I'm making like a passive and active version. And the passive version, like literally I'll put it in a silicone bowl and shake, just swirl it around, and all the crap sticks to the side. And then you just pour the fine glands out into the next bowl, swirl it again, and it gets cleaner and cleaner until it's just caviar, you know?
Okay. Now
you can go through descending buckets. If you have a lot more, you could do 5-gallon pails and just put like, 5-10% of the pail with some dry sift, shake it up, pour it into a second pail, wipe out the first one. That's all. There's going to be a little resin trapped in that. You could save it for squishing or infusing later or something. But to get to clean glands, let it stay with the shit, because the oil's got a negative charge, right?
So let me see if I'm understanding this for like the process of it. I'm going to be using, like, obviously cold. I looked it up. -14 is about 6 degrees Fahrenheit, between 6 and 7 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's all right, cool. I can get a room, or even if I, if I make a cold room and have that so I can process it, that's a good,
then
number.
You can do it anytime. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's, I mean, that's goals right there. I'll work towards that. Yeah, but if I can get 1 or 2 runs out of here, I mean, we're not getting that cold right here in Michigan right now, but I might.
No, but in the future, in the winter, because when you live somewhere it gets that cold, it just becomes your annual thing where, okay, now's when we make the dry sift,
People
like
start
just
tapping trees from maple and I'm out here sifting.
Yeah. I love that.
In hot climates, they rub hash because, they can't sift. And in cold places, they sift,
So I'm going to take that. I want to get the bud, like break up as much of it. I don't want to make it into a powder.
Yeah, you don't want to totally destroy it. And you can obviously do it in different levels. Like this is my 5-second shake and this is my, 2-minute shake,
Man, the variables to pay attention to. Interesting.
Well, you'll find with those PVC gloves that you can really get a feeling. Like I had lots of frosty nugs there. I was just breaking some up. So I did it, just a few weeks ago, and I would just pouch it, and you could see the resin falling off it as it fell apart, but you weren't grinding the green. Like it was still just broken up bud, but it was so cold that when you pinched it, it almost exploded the glands. Like, so it was, but you don't want to do it with like latex gloves that transfer the heat because it stick to your fingers, right?
Okay.
So that's why instead of like using bare hands to squeeze the things, don't do that. Just keep them icy cold. You can throw them in the freezer first so they're even colder if you want, but you just bring them out and slap the bags on the table a few times. And that's the first one. I just come out, slap the bags a couple times and then dump that through. And at no point do I scoop up the hash like that. I pour it from one vessel to another and swirl it around the plastic so it gets all the stuff that when you look at it at the end, you can take that stuff, you can still squish it together into like a little white plasticine lump, but you can tell it's not high grade. Like it's just the waxy parts. And then the resin at the end, you can't touch with your bare fingers. It would just melt all over your fingers, right?
So that first layer that you have where you've got the buds mostly broken up and you know the stuff that you want to fall through and clean up is through that first layer, then you would combine that with those broken up buds and then just infuse that into something so that it's
Sure, yeah, you could throw that back with your sort of second sift, let's say. You could dump that back into the cooking oil, simmer that for a while, and then
okay.
strain it out, filter it,
Awesome. Oh,
and
then
just
now,
cook with that.
then when you run it through, you're gonna, you know, obviously sift it through however many screens you've got, but that very bottom screen, that's not the high quality stuff, is what
But
I'm understanding.
yeah, it depends what that bottom screen is. I just don't know. Is it a 25 micron?
It looks like, so my mesh count, it shows 60, 90, 110, and 200, I believe. Let me see. Okay, so for microns, I've got them right here, guys. Still in the box.
Just got them in. That's exciting.
All right, I've got a 250, 165, 149, and 75 UMOL
Microns.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can have good stuff on the 75 micron or underneath it. But underneath it, you'll have, could be, because sometimes your 45 microns good. Depends on how ripe the plant is and which genetic it is, because some of them have different size gland heads in that. And if you're scraping it off the table at the end, there's stuff there that isn't worth keeping, but there is stuff there that might be worth keeping if your smallest screen's a 70. So you could still cook with that layer too, even just if you're really trying to maximize everything.
Okay.
But yeah, it's probably not your best smoking layer on the table, but some stuff, the 45 micron's really good. So, and it can be just as much as the 73. So that would be, I'm kind of surprised, but either way, you can still clean that up, because you could put that in a 45 micron rosin bag and vacuum out everything finer. Just hold the vacuum right up to the bag and.
Now I'm really interested in the static technique that people are doing. And is that what you were meaning when you said you would shift it around in that bowl?
Well, there's awesome static equipment out there that has the anode and diode, and it's electrically charged for continual charge, so you can pour resin by it and it'll separate, and then some of it will fall through. And typically they do a few passes to get it as clean as they can.
Now, if I'm doing it myself.
Yeah, if you're doing it yourself, you can do it passive style. So that's when I started doing it, I was just using just like a balloon on my head just to pull some fluff out of it and stuff, I would just make it bounce on a tray and then put the balloon over it, and you'd see like dog hair or something would, anything fluff that shouldn't be there would get pulled up to it, and including like cystolithic hairs and that. So if you've got, gland stalks and glands, and really all you want are the glands, you don't want the gland stalks, you don't want the cystolithic hairs. And when the three of them are kind of lumped together to the naked eye, they kind of blend in. But under a microscope, you can see the shapes are different. And once you can get it to look like caviar, and you've just got the gland heads, right? So it typically takes a few passes of any of the static systems. But for the most home growers aren't going to want to invest in a heavy duty one, and they'll be totally more apt to use something very low tech. Like I was using some plastic mixing bowl set, just like an average for baking, and just start in the big bowl, swirl it, put it in the next bowl. You go down 6 bowls just in a cheapo plastic set that's in your kitchen already, and a bunch of shit will stick to it. It's not as good as the silicone though. The silicone bowls, you see such a huge difference even after just one bowl. But it depends how much shift you have, how big a bowl you have. So you have to do multiple passes. If you've got a fair bit of sift in a small bowl, you might need 2 bowls and just go back and forth, wipe it out, pour the next one back. But the silicone
Can we just make this real simple though? What part are we saving to smoke? The part that
just
gets
the resin
stuck on the
glands,
bowl, or the part that gets
caviar,
pumped out?
the stuff that you pour out.
Is what I want to
You're going to
consume.
use
That's
a
good quality.
silicone that captures the positive stuff. So the positive stuff sticks to the silicone, and the negative is the resin glands that you're pouring out of the bowl.
Okay.
So it's just like all the crap sticks to the side, and then you're pouring it out. There's nothing easier. It's the easiest way to clean dry sift in
This
ways.
whole time I've been thinking what sticks to the sides is what I'm trying to gather and consume. And I'm like, this is madness. This is a crazy process.
That's the shit. If it was warm, the good stuff would stick to the side. So you don't want to do it warm, but that's also why silicone's more forgiving. So you still want to do this below freezing.
Okay.
And static charges are weaker the colder the temperature, but they're utterly useless in humidity. So it only works in a dry, cold environment. That's when you have the most static, right? In a dry environment, you have more static than in a humid one. And if it gets wet, it's gone. It just dissipates the static, right?
Oh man, so you're saying there's no crying in the dry room?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No moistness in the dry room.
Don't let them see your weakness. Save those tears until you leave the room.
Yeah, but you know what? You're gonna just laugh at how clean you can get it and how fast you can get it just by swirling it around some silicone bowls. I was literally starting to look at them to source because I thought, I've never sold hash processing equipment, but I think it would be so fun to just have like a link to go to them on Amazon or something like this, or you get some cheap ass bowls, that'll just make your hash polishing super quick and easy. And it really could be so cheap, depending on how big ones you need. If you've got a field, you're going to need more than a handheld mixing bowl, right? But most people that are just doing it for themselves, they're going to be fine with a little set of bowls that's this big, and it can even just be 2 at the minimum, because you just got to pour one into the other and then clean out the first one, wipe it out, and then pour back into that. And that's where all that stuff gets caught to the sides, and when you pour it, you'll pour it out clean in no time, and you've just got the silkiest, cleanest resin glands. You can tell that dry sift even in the bag or on a surface. It really flows like sand. It doesn't have clumps. If there's clumps, it means you've got other material in there. Like if it's at all lumpy or fluffy and pillowy looking, if it's clean, it just looks like sand, like fine sand. It just lays down, and it's really even. So I tend to keep those frozen, or at least in the fridge, and take them out, let them warm up a little bit before you open them, so the condensation doesn't rush in and let them clump up, if you're just like to keep that free flowing dry sift, to me, that's sort of one of the holy grail of mechanically sifted, that's it. That's the cleanest expression of each cultivar, is the resin gland itself, just the gland, nothing but the ball. That's it. And from there, if you want to squish it and make rosin, all the power to you. But I don't always do it. I just feel like I enjoy it so much, just as such a melty thing, that I'll literally just hit straight bowls of it that are just leave a layer of ash in the bowl, so that it just melts into a cherry. It just goes like, it just turns to oil, and then it turns into a big cherry, and you just get that one draw.
That's
honest. That is the essence of the plant,
Like,
and it's just, and you feel a beautiful lift, more than I would get from a joint of it, but less than I would get from a dab of it. I just find, for me, the hash really hits that. It still rings the bell, but it doesn't knock me out. Let's put it like that.
I do like that. I think hash is kind of like the dab hit of flour, though. Like if you have to look at it that way.
You can make dabbable hash.
Mhm.
but it always leaves a little bit more residue because just the skin of the gland, there's that cuticle there that if
Oh,
you
is that what
squished it for
pressing it does?
rosin, you would leave that behind in the bag. And,
Oh,
so that would be the last of the residue in your banger, if you do. But when you have like 6-star melt, whether it's made from dry sift or wet, it's still dab worthy hash, but I don't always clean it that far because it's if you want some for rolling with or hitting in a bowl, you know, you kind of get the grades where, okay, I can still roll with it. Okay, now it's too gummy to roll with. You could sprinkle a bit in maybe, but you can't actually break a little piece apart or make a snake out of it because it just melts to oil even on your latex gloves, So you can make hash so clean that you pretty much have to dab it, but you can back off a little before that and go, okay, this is still absolutely beautiful. And but I, wearing gloves, I can break it up and make it in a joint.
Does that
well,
answer
it's
your
good
question,
process.
Emily? Do you understand the process? Because I think I do. I think.
I think I'm understanding a little more. It makes a lot of sense, especially just understanding what part we're trying to save to consume. That
Yeah.
clears it up a bit. And
Yeah.
I mean, I learn best just by using my hands and giving it a try. So
Yeah,
I should just do it. I've just been hesitant.
totally. Yeah. Well, even a lot of people have those trim bins.
Yeah.
They trim. You
Mhm.
got a trim bin.
Yes, sir.
So those the same thing. I just use one of those to do my first sift because they're
Oh,
150 microns. Well, they probably come with different ones, but the standard one I think is 150 microns. So for most stuff, they'll go through that. I've had some that before that were full melt even at 160s. Like so even then a
and it's
150 is
just
a
what you
bit
learn based
can
on the
be too
cultivar.
small, but that's just particular ones. But most of them by far will be happy to go through that 150 in the trim bin. And because the inside of the trim bin is all that plastic, instead of sweeping it out with the little broom they give you or scraping it out with a card, just thud it. Go, just thud the thing and watch the hash come down to one side and watch a whole bunch of other stuff stick to the
Yeah.
plastic. Right? So if you keep those separate and look at them with your scope afterwards, you'll still find a few glands were stuck in the plastic one, especially if it was room temperature, then for sure there will be. But if it was good and cold, you'll find a few left behind, but the stuff you poured out was much, much cleaner. And then you take that and pour it into a bowl, swirl it around, pour it in the next bowl, swirl it around. By then you're already pouring it out like this is melty wax, like
So
because all those impurities
I'm
stuck
trying to
to the
follow
bowl.
along because like this bowl thing sounds really interesting because it almost sounds like you don't need the bubble bags, do you?
Well, the bubble bags are a different thing. The bubble
Right.
bags are for doing it with water, right?
Mhm.
But if you're doing dry sift, you can
Oh,
use
just
more than one
dry.
screen, but we're
Right.
talking dry sift. So
Yeah.
bubble can be dry or wet, but it's
Right.
become synonymous with wet because most people have poured all their energy into making it wet for a long time. And if you're somewhere where it's warm, it's a lot easier to keep a container of water ice cold than
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
environment,
I guess
Whereas if
when
you
you're
live
talking about
somewhere
the
the
bowl,
environment's ice cold,
I was
really
envisioning
easy to do
water.
it.
Yeah.
No,
Have
no, no,
you ever tried?
dry.
Oh, that's
We're
even
talking dry sift.
that's even
So
more
you're just
interesting.
taking the dry glands,
Yeah.
and when you first get them out, they're going to have some dust in them. They're
Yeah.
going to have, and that dust can be non-plant related, could be blown in
Right.
on the wind, right? You're going to just have some dust. But because it's cold and because there was some violent slapping, that stuff all comes loose because it's not sticky when it's dry, is when it's cold. But it's got to be really cold because it's not even at freezing. It's got to be quite a bit below freezing. And if it's really cold, all that stuff will separate nicely. And you can do the pouring of the bowls first to gets the bulk of it out, and that's the cystolithic hairs and the gland stalks, which are more waxy,
Mhm.
and then the fine dust. That's some of it'll stick to the plastic part, some of it won't because it's not charged, so it'll fall out with your glands, which aren't sticking to that charge, because
Right.
they're negative. So they're going to pour out, but you're still pouring it out with that fine sand on it, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So then I pour it into a fine micron bag, either a 25 or a 37 or a 45, and then vacuum that bag. And that gets anything smaller than that screen pulled through.
Right.
Right. You can, I didn't do it always with a rosin bag, because I'm going back to doing vacuuming before there was rosin bags. And you know what I first started doing, which used to be a thing called a palm shaker. And it was like a gray plastic thing with an orange lid, had a picture of bud around it. It was like POLM, or Dutch, how they say pollen. That's a whole other story. But the palm shaker was two plastic parts that snapped together, and they had a screen in it, probably a 150 or something like that, like a work, for working. So you could throw a half ounce of bud in there and shake it up and then get the hash out of the bottom. But what I started doing was I switched that screen out for a finer screen. I started using a 25, because I'm like, there's nothing good under the 25. 25 itself is usually questionable, unless you have something that's really nice with small glands. It happens. But the 25 screen in that palm shaker, I would just take my shop vac thing and go stick it in there and vacuum under that screen. And if I put 10 grams of dry sift in there, I would probably suck out 1 gram of dust and weigh it on the way out, and I'd have 9 grams, but it would be more polished,
Right. Yeah.
So it just sucks out the fine dust in the way that the water would pull it if you were pulling the bags up and the water's going down.
Yeah.
That pulls out the fines. So I pull out the fines with a vacuum with dry sift. And the funny thing is, I never even thought about using it to quick dry water hash, but now a German guy came up with it, and he sells these rings with a screen in it, and people use the shop vac to suck the water out of the hash, so they don't need a freeze dryer. They can crumble it up and it dries overnight real quick and easy.
That's cool.
So it's super smart that he's using that. He's called like Inspector Dabbit or something. And it was like, I was like, Jesus, I was vacuuming hash through a ring for years, but only dry sift. I never thought about doing it with the wet stuff, which is totally smart. Smart. Yeah. But anyway, almost everybody's got a vacuum, Not everybody, but a lot of people have a vacuum. It's not that hard to come by. So you can do the vacuum thing with, I call that low tech, because most people have one already. And if not, you can get a dust buster pretty easy if you're just trying to suck the bag. And if you want to do it off the grid, you have a cordless one. But if you want to do the static off the grid, you just have the vessels, static vessels, let's say, and then just swirling them around those and pouring them into the next one and swirling it. All kinds of that crap just sticks to the sides. So it's totally easy, and it costs next to nothing to get these bowls, for sure.
Yeah.
Like I have one of those. I've been using, the one I started with was a folding dog bowl. Like it looks like a Frisbee almost, because it collapses, and then you can uncollapse it and it pops out. So it's this collapsible silicone bowl. And I thought, that's got a strong charge, because you could always see like it would grab a hair or something. So I just poured the sift in there, swirl it around, and it would just be caked with the shit that wasn't glands, everything but glands was just stuck to the wall of that bowl. And I was like, this is the easiest way to get the static done on the dry sift. And really, maybe you're going to spend $5 on it, and you're going to have it forever. And it doesn't need batteries, and you don't have to plug it in. And, it's just the easiest way to clean dry sift that I've ever found. But the vacuuming is good, but it doesn't take out as much as the static does, that's for sure.
I've got a question, because somebody in chat said dry ice. Is that used for dry sift to make it colder, or is that only?
Yeah, if you can use it. You can use dry ice to do dry sift.
How?
Totally. Yeah.
How would you do that to, like,
in a bubble bag?
Really,
you actually.
then, I'm sorry.
Yeah, in a bubble bag, you take your frozen trim and stick it in a bubble bag, and you add dry ice pellets, and you shake. And the dry ice freezes everything, keeps it ice cold, and acts as an agitator. But like Steve said, if you get crazy with it and shake too hard, you'll get a lot of plant material and all coming through that bubble bag.
Also, you'll destroy your bubble bags because it's so frozen. I did it even with liquid nitrogen, but even with the dry shift or with the dry ice, that plastic coating on the bags, that just flakes apart.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
It just destroys your bags. So I used to do it as like a punching bag. I'd fill up the bags, put some weed in there, and have multiple
Just
bags
speed
there,
bag
and then
it?
I would do like a punching bag outside, or just slap it on my hands, or slap it on the wall. And I would do dry sift in bags that way sometimes, and then I would vacuum from the bottom to get it to pull through the screens and settle down. So I've used them that way, but you will destroy the bags in very short order. And I found now I get it as clean as I want it with a single screen and the static bowls, the passive static, and then the vacuum. And most of the time I'm too lazy to even get to the vacuum. So like after I've done the static bowls, I'm like, if you try to pick it up with your fingers, it just turns to oil on your fingers. So if you can't pick it up, it's good. If it
I
melts through
definitely
your
need
fingers,
to try that. That's like a great wintertime activity anyway, because like by the time my outdoor's done, it'll be getting cold out. Probably.
Exactly. It's the natural progression of the seasons up here for the high latitude growers, at least.
Yeah, I'd say how you preserve it too for the cold, long winter that's going to be coming.
Well, too, you can thrash a whole bunch of, and I hate trimming. I will trim a couple buds for a few jars, but I can't be bothered to trim if I have like 5 pounds of weed in the backyard. I'm not going to sit there and trim 5 pounds. I'm going to trim 5 ounces maybe, keep a few tops, and the rest of it I don't even trim. Right? I just strip it off. I usually take the fan leaves off before I cut before I strip the rest off the branches.
Yeah.
So I'd cut the fan leaves. Then I'd and I usually work my way down because it's not like I need to take the whole plant the same day. So I would start with the top buds and then work my way down the plant and let the bottoms have another week and another week and another week. And they swell up when they're the only thing left alive and the tops are gone. Then the bottoms come in a bit more. But then I'm not trimming it. So I'll just let it dry in the cold, bag it up, and then wait till it freezes. Like I literally leave my bags outside after I stuff them. I just leave them outside because by then it's cold out, and then when I wait till it gets a lot colder. But I don't even have room in the inside freezer anymore because I have one freezer packed with weed already and one dedicated fridge freezer, and they're packed with weed. So I don't even have room to stuff it in. So I'd leave them outside, literally outside and it's so fun because I just watching the weather and then I'm like, oh, and I love getting a minus 14 in the daylight, and this year it was really warm, so I didn't even get that cold, but I was lucky to get like a -8 at nighttime, and I put on the headlamp and I go out and do it. And it's hard to make a good video when you're doing it by yourself with a headlamp at 3 a.m. or whatever, but you don't bother. But it just takes me minutes to crush every pound and take the glands out of it,
and that's
it's so fast. Yeah, I can do my whole crop in an hour, I'm sure, from setup to cleanup. If I had 10 plants out there and they were all different and I wanted 10 bags of sift, probably 6 minutes each one, So a really quick way to do it when you're getting slack and old and and you've still got all that crushed up bud that's absolutely fine for making your tinctures or making your topicals, or you can do all that with that. You still got tons. I literally give it away by the pound to old ladies that are making topicals for themselves, for arthritis and stuff, and they swear by it. And I'm like, here, have another sack of weed because I'm not going to use it. If I wanted to, I could, take a solvent to it or something and make something out of it that way. And maybe in a commercial situation, I might do that to maximize returns. But on a small scale at home, I can't be bothered. I just want to give me the hash off it and a few jars of nugs, and I'm good. But I've been doing that every year for a while, and they've built up. And I don't use them all every year because I'm not as chronic as I used to be by a long shot, but I still do puff high grade through the day, but not all day every day, but periodically through the day every day. Let's say not all the time through the day. When I was younger, I was much more functional stoner, and I could be there smoking ridiculous hash joints, just chain smoking them and still doing keeping my world together with a lot of employees in a different language and, crazy stuff. But nowadays it's like all I can do to figure out how to cut the lawn in a week, So it's it's at this point in my life, I feel like I'm becoming an old burnout, and I really make a point of delegating as much as I can because I don't trust myself to want to do more than take a fat dab and sit on the couch. I'm just a lazy fucker now. So I tell you,
I love that though, because honestly, I also hate trimming weed. Like I hate it so much, and I do kind of like trim some of it, and then I'm like, I don't know. I'm like,
it's enough to
farmer's trim, but
just
this sort of
debone
gives me
it. Get
the
it off
option.
the sticks. That's it. All
Yeah.
I'm going to do is I just want to debone it. Once
Yeah.
I've dropped the fans, I'm just going to debone that bud off the sticks. And then once it's cold enough, I'm just going to mash it all up in a few minutes. And it's so
and I love that I can
quick
still,
and easy.
like I can like process so much cannabis all at once, and then I still have the material to make my topicals and my edibles and all the oils.
Exactly.
And stuff.
Yeah, you got some heady stuff for yourself.
Yeah.
And then you've got all the extras you need, for
that's going to totally
processing.
change what I do this fall.
That's my strategy is, have abundance that way. Skim the cream. It's literally just skimming the cream off it.
Right.
For your head stash. And and to me, dry sift is the least effort. And I love that the second you sift it, it's ready to smoke.
Yeah.
Whereas with the wet hash, okay, now you got to wait, And always, if you can smell the water, it's because the water took something from you. In the dry sift, it's like, this is how it came out. We haven't adulterated it or taken from it at all,
Yeah.
It's just the essence of the plant. It's really like, you make wine from the grapes, not the whole vine,
Yeah.
I don't want to smoke the apple tree. I want the apple,
Well, that actually makes me even more excited for this grow season because I'm going to be growing outdoors. And like the last couple of years, things just haven't really gone according to plans. My plants never got that big. And I was always just like, well, I don't really want to deal with massive plants anyway because it's such a pain to process them afterwards. But now I really have no excuse. I can grow monster plants and not have to spend like all this time in trim gel.
You can, once you start looking at them as non-trimming items, they're even more nicer to grow because if I look at it like, oh, I don't want to trim that, then it's not the same. But when I'm like, I want a thrasher. It's going down. It's going down. I'm gonna thrash that thing and it's gonna be gone in minutes,
Yeah.
Turn
so are
it
you
to
sorry, I was just
diamond
gonna ask you, Emily, if you're planning on like are you planning on doing some hash soon? Or is this something you're planning for like down the road yourself?
Oh my gosh, no, I'm doing it. I'll probably try it tonight. Come on now. I've got ADHD and I'm excited. So of course
now you're stoked.
Is it gonna be cold enough? Is it gonna be cold enough for you?
Well, I mean, my basement is pretty cold still here in Michigan. We've had some colder days lately. It's been pretty rainy, unfortunately. I mean, we hit 70 last week, and then now we're back in, low 30s and stuff. So it's just, who knows what the weather wants to do at this point. But yeah, I want to give it a try because I got these and then they've just literally been sitting here for like a month now because I'll watch a video or I'll read something and I'll be like, okay, I can do that. And then I don't do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I absolutely want to. I think that's awesome. And I think that it's it just seems like the best way to get the most of the plant. And again, with the least effort, which is absolutely incredible, but you get absolutely what you need to consume and what you want to consume in terms of the trichome heads. And then you can use the rest of it that isn't that purest for consumption, like for smokable consumption. You can use the rest of it and go into edibles, FICO, topicals, all of that. And then at that point, I mean, you've got everything else of the plant that you can utilize too in that situation. So it feels like in terms of what, like the most bang for your buck, oh my gosh, go get some dry sift.
Yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun.
It feels like
I
it's
love
coming
it.
full circle a little bit too, because like there's all this like high tech stuff out there on the market and stuff, but you can just like dry sift some cannabis, and it's what
Yeah,
they used to
I
do like a millennia
appreciate
ago.
showing people low tech options.
Yeah,
You know, I appreciate the high tech options too, but I think it's always important to know what your low tech options are. You know, there's other ways to do it. There's people going to sell you everything you can think of to do anything, right? But sometimes you find a hack that helps you achieve it with something
right.
you've already got, you know, and then it's like,
Yeah.
huh, like a silicone frisbee. If you got a silicone frisbee, you could drop it on, shift
Yeah,
it around.
they were literally okay. So I've seen that. I've seen that when I've been
Yeah,
looking up and looking information. I hadn't seen a video of somebody using a frisbee, but I've read about that. There, that's literally what we'd use outside in the park.
exactly. So
Wow.
there's so many day-to-day items you can hack to use that'll be easy that way. But I think that there's an opportunity to have like nicely shaped ones that have a pouring spout in the one corner and stuff so that they're convenient to use, you know? So I think, you get one mold made up and then make little sets of them for people and have them in different sizes. I might do it. I'm not saying I'm going to do it because I'm doing too many things already, but every day I come up with another stupid idea, you know? So half the time I try it too, but anyway, the silicone bowls will make a difference. But the thing I've been researching is there's ways to moderate or maximize the charge of them because they can do it with aluminum particles in it or this or that. There's all these silicone additives so that you can really make silicone any polarity you want for that almost. Like it's
Is there like certain numbers of polarity that you measure? Is that something that you?
not that I do. I mean, I know it exists, but the more of a conceptual level. But but it's worth seeing. And basically, the strongest charge you can get for it that way will be the right one, you know, because you're trying to achieve something very specific. But when I was looking into it, I've also seen for more continual methods to have ones that are charged, even that can be plugged in or run off batteries, but also a little bit more. It involves silicone, but also on electrical charge. You know,
I mean,
so
I've
you
seen
can
those, the pollen. I don't know what it's called.
pollinators, the
Yeah, I've seen the
pollinators. Yeah.
pollinator.
So yeah, it's what you take out of that, how you clean it up, right? So the pollinator, obviously, you can run it until it's green dust and it's, not great, but you can do pretty good cleanup with static. It's just how many passes you're going to need, because a lot of that stuff will stick to the silicone.
Are you able to do too much static and start taking away the heads?
Maybe. I mean, you're always going to lose some heads in there. There's going to be some that are physically blocked from flowing and get trapped up in the matrix of everything else. So there's always going to be some attrition there, but you can determine if, like, I've not even been saving it. Like, I've looked at it, go, yeah, something there, I'm sure, but it's so minimal compared to the other stuff. Because you scoop up the stuff off the sides and it'll roll into like a hard blonde lump, but the other one will just turn to oil on your fingers. Like it's night and day different.
And
You
that's
know,
even in a cold room. You're not meaning like like just the body.
yeah, body temperature. Yeah, it just melts on your finger at body temperature. But the stuff you scoop out of the bowl doesn't. You can scoop that out and it's kind of crumbly, but you can squish it together and press it into a chunk. But it's just the fluff mostly,
Okay.
it's just shit.
Yeah, I hope you
Just,
try it tonight. I'm excited for you, Emily. I hope you try it.
I'm really
Yeah,
excited.
you can
Oh, yeah.
freeze your bags first. You can throw your bags in the freezer right now for a few hours before you do it.
Okay.
And then the minute you take them out of the freezer, just smash them against the freezer door a few times, and the glands will be snapping loose off the plant.
I've got the bag. I've got the bag already chucked off the branch, and everything, and that's in a freezer bag in the freezer right now. And it's been
perfect. So yeah, when you start slapping that off the freezer, it's going to start dropping glands, and don't get your hands on the bag or the glands will stick to the bag,
Okay.
So just swig it from the top.
Okay.
And then once you see that there's a whole bunch of dust falling off, just pour that on your screens.
Okay.
Start tapping them,
And what beats per minute? Who's the artist I should have playing in the background?
That's a great question. Yeah.
No, that's really, I'm excited to give it a try, and I definitely hope to be smoking some hash. I actually got myself a really beautiful hash pipe.
Ooh.
Specifically from one of the gromies. I don't know, I call them blomies because they're glass blowers of our community, Skunk Ape Glassworks. And I really want to get into hash and learn how to make my own. I've been able to learn how to make my own FICO. I can make my own edibles. I understand the concept of making tincture. I just don't have, all of the access to the different like oils and things like that. So I haven't actually made my own tincture or my own lotion. I apologize, lotion. So I haven't done that yet, but it's I love being able to take care of myself, and this plant has been able to provide all of that. And I think that's just such an awesome thing. And going back to Deborah's first question that she asked about, where she said, "What's your favorite thing about cannabis?" And it's how cannabis can be with me through everything. I love to explore. I love to learn. I love education, and I love putting my hands, in dirt, actually getting things made with my hands and stuff. And cannabis fits all of those buckets. Not only is it something that I'm able to like learn from in terms of like growing and cultivating, but it has so much education in terms of how you grow it, how you cultivate it, what cultivars you're using, and what you're trying to get from it and gain from it. And so like another thing going into this, if I'm looking at dry sift, how do I know what type of a plant I'm trying to grow? For that, if I want to focus on getting that pure end result, what type of a plant am I trying? Like throughout veg, what do I look for? Or do I only look at these in flower and I can kind of get an idea of it? Do you know like what to look for, Steve?
I would, when they're in veg, I like to rub the stems and get sort of a preview of what smell like, because to me, the aromas are really important. Aroma is a huge part of flavor. Flavor is a huge part of what draws me to it, is the aromas and flavors is what attracts me. But I think I've had a damaged lower spine since I was about 5. Oh. And I think subconsciously I liked it because it was a little anti-inflammatory, but also it's more just that it takes the edge off of the irritation from the pain, right? So that I think, well, it doesn't make the pain go away, but I can grin and bear it a little better. But I don't, I never got a medical license or anything, even when, I could have, but I was always like, I don't need a better reason to have it than I like the fucking smell of it. And fuck it. If I just like it because it tastes good, that's enough for me. I'm not going to say, oh, please let me have it because for my back. Fair, if you need it, you need it medically. I'm not knocking medical use. I'm just saying I never felt the need to go that way because I was already indignant about its prohibition and felt like I don't need a reason, thanks very much, but I don't need your approval to use part of nature. I'm not going to sign up for your stupid program and tell you where I grow. I'm a little older than that. We don't trust the fucking government on some level, I mean, that's sort of the mark of growing up at some point, if you still trust the government at this point, I don't know what to tell you, like
you're smoking something and it's not good.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was looking at like getting the filling out the forms to do the medical grow. And I downloaded the forms, but I was looking at it and they do ask a lot of questions.
None of their business, honestly. Like, it's too much. It's overreach. In this way, people say, oh, you're just being ornery about it. Well, maybe I am, but still I am, because it's justified. It's overreach.
And it is a lot.
The herbs in my property do not concern you, And if you want to be a busybody, you do it at your own risk, you know, because I have a very low tolerance for tyranny. And I just think these bastards, you know, I was indignant about this since I was young, and I did stupid things of it, you know, like, because I was like, I just don't care. I feel good about doing it. I'd feel like a loser if I didn't, you know, like I feel
I have
like,
a
fuck, who do
question.
they think they are, you know? So
I have like a hypothetical question. So here in Michigan, we have, you know, medical program, we have like a caregiver program, things like that. And it really, I feel like benefits, you know, to help fight against the stigma and everything that comes with cannabis still, and that's presented with it. And recreational is also allowed here in Michigan. And that was granted after the medical was allowed. A lot of people no longer care about the medical side. They don't care to get their patient cards. They don't care to register as caregivers. And it's because, well, it's available recreationally. But
yeah.
I feel like people are missing so much of, well, we need to show them that it does matter medically, because if nobody signs up for it and everybody just says, well, I'm just going to grow how I want instead of putting the numbers on the census, then how are they going to know that we're still using it as medicine? It feels like if we are trying to get that progressed and moved forward. I feel like we do have to
Well,
kind of put our
I
name
think
on
there
a list
can
so that
be
we
like
can show those.
associations of medical growers that lobby for their rights, you know, if they feel like they're missing out for some reason. But I think also for companies to do it, once you start calling it medical and it's legal, then it's got to start standing to a higher standard with clinical trials and all that, right? So you hit that, you know, Schedule 3 situation really, where it's not, you know, everybody can just do it like it's echinacea. It's going to be highly controlled, right? So if everybody could just have it like it's echinacea, then there's not that need for the pharmaceutical clinical trials for echinacea, because people just grow echinacea. They can't make any money selling you echinacea, you know? So they want to have they want to have the gatekeeper set it up for them, right? It's regulatory capture with the, you know, corporate interests steer the government towards a moat and, you know, keeping all these hurdles in place to make it difficult for people to do it themselves or to have a farm gate version of it. They want to say, oh no, we can do it because we're the big pharma company. So you got to be careful with medical, because it's a bit of a cop out. Like, it's a real thing. A medical is highly valid, but to say it's, you know, if you say you need approval for it, now you're setting yourself up for other problems, right?
You're
So
setting
I think,
yourself up for them to take it
yeah,
away.
if everybody's allowed to do it, the same thing happened in Canada. Once everybody was allowed to do it, and then there was no need to get the medical cards and people. But I know there were still patients that were unhappy with that because they were able to write off the medicine before, and now they can't because,
Yeah.
you know, it's not part of it or it's not insured as medical. But now I'm seeing some actual turnaround, and some of the companies in Canada that had pushed hard into adult use, they've now said, you know what? We're not going to worry about adult use. The market's so crowded. There's not enough highly, you know, tested, clinical trialed medical products. So they're going back to just making the medical after, you know, perhaps not succeeding as much as they wanted to in adult use. But they're kind of also bucking the trend a little bit, because the trend was just to forget medical and do adult use. But there is still a clamoring of people that want to get it as, you know, a proper medicine, and they want to be able to write it off as a medicine. I've got no problem with that, you know, but as long as everybody can choose what they want to do, because if they make it so it's just going to be licensed as, you know, fentanyl's a legal drug, right? If you've got a license, you can sell it to the hospital. The hospital can give it to people. So, I mean, you're going to have two classes of it, you know? So if you don't want to have the black market, you have to make it legal, because there'll always be a black market if it's illegal on one end. And then they're not getting known doses, and, you know, for a bigger problem, obviously, with fentanyl. But with cannabis, it's a lot less of an issue because we can really just we don't really need their help to grow it medically and make our own potions out of it. It's a non-issue. It's once you're allowed to grow it, and even if you're not, you're going to grow it and make your own meds, and it's going to save a lot of people from opiate prescriptions or the SSRIs and other things. Because cannabis displaces, anywhere it's legalized, it displaces huge amounts of pharmaceuticals. So they want to. They don't want to lose market share. They just want to convert to selling cannabis-based medicines, but only we're allowed to sell them,
Right.
So that's, I don't like that. So I'm always wary. Like, I always knew it was always going to be incremental, that you'd have hemp, medical, adult use. It might take a decade each. It might take 2 decades each, but it's always that progression of, okay, hemp. Okay, medical. And then after people get inured to them, then it's like, okay, adult use, who cares? Everybody does it anyway, And so it's always this progression, and we see it over and over again in the world. And, my feeling from day one, was we really don't need a better reason to smoke it or grow it than we like the plant.
Yeah.
Period.
You're
But
growing basil
we're
or
gonna have
something.
to jump through all the hoops to drag the government along with us, and
Yeah.
it'll take forever. But here we are, and in various countries, the communities manage to get at various degrees along the way, and there's so many different permutations of it in all these different countries. Like, it can be interesting to see. Like, in Czech Republic just allowed home grow as of January 1st this year. I think it's like Germany with 3 plants per adult, I think. But it's interesting because there's no social clubs allowed. There's no clone sales allowed. The only thing that's legal is seed sales and homegrown. So that makes it, one of the top market this year for seed sales, because that's the only thing that's legal to sell. It's not legal to sell your homegrown, but it's legal to sell seeds. So
That's really cool.
it's really interesting. That's the only thing. Like, you can't buy a flower, and there's no social clubs to go
You
to
have
or
to grow it
anything.
if you want it.
You have to grow
legally.
your own.
Yeah.
That's the only thing,
Yeah.
So
That's
so
such
then
a
you
different
have
way
kind of a
doing it
captive
than-
market. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's nice people can go and buy it at the pharmacy or at the social club or at, the farm gate. I don't care. Buy it from wherever you want to buy it. I could care less. If you're happy with it, I'm happy with it. But if you want to grow your own, great. But if they say you can only grow your own, that's better than you can only buy it. If you
I
ask me,
agree.
I
Yeah.
hate it, because that's like
Completely.
saying you can only go out to eat in restaurants, but you can't cook at home. If I had,
Right. Yeah.
it's like, let me cook at home, please.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not going
like,
to ask your permission to
you
cook
can
at
only
home.
buy the tomatoes. You can't get them. You can't grow them at home.
Right. That's
It's
so
all the same
dumb.
thing. Yeah.
Forget that.
Yeah.
Forget that. So
Yeah.
I think, people, it's the rebellious nature of people that have kept the plant from extinction, because virtually every government on the planet was trying to make it extinct for a century.
Yeah.
And it was only the people that,
And here we are now talking about it on
said,
YouTube
"Fuck 'em,"
still.
Yeah, that's
Still.
right. And there's still, most of the world still needs help.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But at
Yeah.
least in Canada, in most provinces, we can
Yeah.
have 4 plants. It's not even across Canada. Like, federally, 4 plants are legal, but some provinces don't even want you to have your 4 plants. They want you to buy
Yeah.
it from them.
Yeah. I think
You
Quebec's
know?
the only holdout still, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know. Yeah, because I
so.
know that people were fighting it and challenging it in Manitoba
I
and
think
Quebec.
Manitoba. I
Probably.
think they won the right to grow.
Did they flip
I
there?
feel like I
Good.
should know, but yeah,
They should. I mean, it's just so insane.
I know.
It's so insane.
I totally agree. But on that note, I just want to be mindful of the time, because we have a couple minutes left. And I just want to say thank you for you 3 for joining me tonight for what ended up being a really interesting conversation. Maybe a little less about growing, but more peripheral things. But, when you get a bunch of cannabis growers and users together, that's kind of what happens. So
Yes, it
I
does.
ramble on. Sorry.
I like seeing where the conversation goes. It's always fun, and it's always,
yeah.
I mean, the concept. Cannabis as a concept.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to thank you for showing up tonight and for being here, and for the people who are in the chat, and for people who are probably listening afterwards. And I just want to mention that Steve started a new podcast as well. So if the people listening didn't know that already, and you're doing an AMA on Thursday,
Saturday.
on Saturday, right? Today's Thursday, right?
Yeah, Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to ask Steve questions about anything cannabis related, then you can turn up for that as well. And you can find myself and Monkey and Emily in the Bite Me Cannabis Club. And Emily, you're still on Let's Be Buds, of course.
Yeah, Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Let's Be Buds.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that note, thanks everybody, and keep growing.
By all
Take
means.
care. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks for having